Today, I have the privilege of sitting down with Jess Washington, the CEO of the Dallas Weekly. With 70 years of history behind this iconic publication, Jess is leading the charge to shape its future and deepen its impact within the Black community. We're going to explore who she is as a leader, the legacy of the Dallas Weekly, and where she sees the future of Black media. Let's dive in. First of all, Jess, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Let's start with, first of all, telling the folks, who is Jess Washington?
I am a mother, I am a wife, I am an advocate of the Black community, but most importantly, I'm having a new role of being a community leader.
Wow. All of that wrapped into one package.
Yes.
That started out, first of all, in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what it was like growing up in your home.
It was a little bit of of controlled chaos. So I'm proud to say that I am the daughter of a blended family, and so there was a lot of movement going on, a lot of staying at grandmom's house. It was like a multi-generational house with everybody living in separate homes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Everybody was half a block away from each other, so you couldn't get away with anything. Everybody knew who you were. And I think it's interesting that when I came to Dallas and I met my husband and his family business, the Dallas Weekly, it was intertwined the exact same type of way where everybody knows who he is. Everybody knows, you know what I mean? The connections. And now that I'm part of that, I also can't get away with anything. So you might as well be in the streets doing something good, right?
Yeah. Okay. So you're taking us right into it. So you came to Dallas. I mean, you're 13 years old when you come to Dallas.
Yes.
Talk about what this is like for you to make this transition into Dallas.
I mean, it definitely was a culture shock, especially back in the 90s. You know, Dallas was not nearly as big of a city as it is right now. Actually, now Dallas seems bigger than my hometown of Philadelphia. Yeah. It seems like it's just moving constantly fast, and it's very exciting from a business standpoint because that means the market is so much bigger, and it's just it's a quote unquote sexier place to do business in from a national standpoint and even international at this point.
Got you. All right. So when you talk about coming in here at 13, you're seeing all the things going on. Even as a 13-year-old, you're even able to observe some of the things going on from a business standpoint. Talk about what led to your role of becoming CEO of the Dallas Weekly. Again,
wow,
an iconic publication here in Dallas.
I would be remiss if I don't talk about my upbringing with my family. Yeah. So even though they work corporate jobs, they still had side businesses of like apartment management and things like that. Every house that we bought in our moves as a military kid, they kept the ownership.
Yes.
And then rented it out. So I was in QuickBooks making invoices as a teenager, like working for my parents. And so I kind of got the idea of the importance of making your own dollar. So fast forward, I, go to college and everything like that. I work my corporate life, but I still realized that there were limitations. So then fast forward to me, basically after having my son, I realized that I wasn't going to be happy doing what I was doing and fighting the way I was fighting in the corporate world. I more or less kind of had an anxiety attack and then called Patrick, who was the vice president at the time, and was like, I don't know what I need to do, but I can't be here anymore. So figure it out and find me a job at the Weekly. So I came in really very meek. I just wanted to be in finance. I didn't even want my name on it. My email was finance@Dallas Weekly forever because I did not want any connection. But I just kept falling in love with the idea. Unfortunately, sometimes with tragedy comes goodness. I'll tell a very quick story of one of the former Dallas Weekly employees had died of cancer. We were at the funeral, and it's like everybody from Dallas Weekly's past at that time was 65 years showed up, I saw in that moment with the camaraderie and the family motion, like how important that DW was, plus people on the street being like, oh my God, you guys need to know about this. It was just like constant like reminders of the impact that this newspaper has. It was more than just telling Black stories. This really means something to people. So that's when it made me realize, oh my God, I'm in love with this. There's no other job I can ever have that will give me this type of feeling. So then fast forward to me just being a natural born leader, I started digging into things that was not my job description, like editorial and just marketing and branding and figuring out like I want everybody and their mom to talk about DW again. So then I started getting into event planning. I started getting into collaborations and, go into all of these things technologically to try to see how we can expand. COVID hit. And so that is when we really had to put the fire, to it and just see like it's a make or break time. And it really was for a lot of Black publications across the nation, right? So I was like, there is no time like the present to get hyper digital and really let people know that we're out here advocating for them. And that's actually how I created the Best of Black Dallas.
Okay.
Fast forward to my CEO role, I basically was feeling myself. And so I told the CEO at the time, Patrick, you need to make me CEO. And he said, you have not done enough. And so I had to, step back and then, put my tail between my legs and then do all the roles at the Weekly. I had to understand what it was like to print a paper, to distribute it, to have ink cartridge issues, to be fighting with contractors. I mean, it was more than just selling an ad or two and then showing up to networking events.
Yes.
So that's why now I can be very confident and tell my staff there's no position that you can tell me that you can't do because I've done them all.
All right, so I want to I want to step back a little bit because you said a lot in there.
Sorry.
No. It's all part of a conversation. First of all, why did you think you needed to be CEO at the moment you asked to be CEO?
I'm okay.
Or told him you needed to be CEO?
I'm okay with saying this because he said this himself.
Okay.
Patrick is a creative. He's not a businessman.
Okay.
I have a business mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just a better fit. It was like I have been under great leaders before. I just know what it looks like, to run a company. I know it should be, I hate to sound psychotic, but like if you're not waking up thinking about it and going to sleep thinking about it, and then in between your times when you're having fun with your friends, they see you on your phone working it, like that to me is what it should look like. And I love him, but he didn't really have that.
And this is what you were experiencing at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's the way I saw it in him. And I was like, if you would just give me the reins, imagine where we could go with this.
Okay.
And then I just started doing things like a CEO, if you can imagine. And then he was just, one day he decided, like, you get to have it.
Got you. So let's talk about this. What do you think when you talk about being at a funeral and you hear all these people coming up to you and they're sharing stories and they're sharing their passion for the Dallas Weekly and the impact that it's had on their life? Talk about what you think has led to this longevity. Because when you talk about 70 years, I mean, to do anything for 70 years, that's significant in and of itself.
Thank you.
When you talk about a publication for 70 years, I want folks to understand the significance of that. You could run a store, you could run an inventory type business for 70 years, and that's one thing. But when you talk about a publication for 70 years and you have to balance journalistic integrity along with advertising and all those things that go along with that, and maintaining integrity and character that go along with that, that's pretty darn significant.
Yeah.
And solely speak to the African American community.
Yes.
And not sell your soul.
Yeah.
That is pretty darn significant. Talk about what you feel has led to the longevity and the success of that for the Dallas Weekly.
Well, first, let's just give a shout out to the Black community in itself, right? Because the Black community demands the truth.
Yes.
They demand transparency.
Yep.
And so if it wasn't for them, then we wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
And so that's the only reason why we have made it 70 years, because unfortunately, I have to say we live in a country where transparency and advocacy for our community is not a widespread thing. And they need a place to trust. And so I am so proud to say that for 70 years, we have been a trusted source in the community. Yeah. And it has gone from just being a South Dallas paper to a Dallas paper to a North Texas paper. Yeah. And now we have a national presence. Wow. And so I couldn't be more proud. And like the future is very bright. And unfortunately, especially in times that we see ahead, what the work that we do is more important than ever, and people will be searching for it.
Yeah. I love that. You alluded to it. One of the questions I was going to ask you are, what are some of the things that you're doing to stay relevant? We've talked about the 70-year history, but what are some of the things you're doing to stay relevant? You talked about it, Black Dallas, the Best of Black Dallas.
Yes.
Talk about the Best of Black Dallas Awards show that you're doing.
Sure. So, like I said, I started this back in 2020 because at the time we were going through a lot of social unrest. I felt like at the time I was just constantly opening my phone and seeing what I would call digital graveyards. And I was really over it. And so I was like, let me create something that we can do, which is celebrate each other. And I think we need to remember how great we are, right? At the same time, it was general election time. So I was like, how can I create some synergy between encouraging the importance of civic engagement, reminding people of the power of that history that we had in this country. It's hard to talk about it right now because it's like we know how to do the work, right? But I was like, but what needs to be remembered, I think what did get kind of lost during, I don't know, a great time in the 80s, I can't speak to it, but we lost the importance of that support with each other, within each other, like buying from one another and circulating that Black dollar. I think once we started getting let into other neighborhoods and things like that, we were just feeling like everything was going to be okay. And now we know that it's not, you know? So I kind of want to show people that the bones are there. We've done it before, and we can do it again. And so that's what the Best of Black Dallas is. It's a combination of teaching people the practice, if you will. I want it to be a behavior that is remembered, that like, hey, I haven't supported somebody that looks like me in a while. You know what I mean? Like, look to Dallas Weekly to find some things to do like that. Because outside of Best of Black Dallas, we have campaigns like in March for Women's History Month, we had like Woman of the Month, you know, and it ended up being Miss Chocolate Watson, who, you know, redeemed women, an amazing person. But sorry, I'm gonna circle back. I'm all about building the ecosystem. That is the point of Best of Black Dallas.
Okay.
And that's what I do. And I do want to point out that I dip back into that ecosystem throughout the year. So the same people who end up being winners, even if they're not a winner, is a nominee. If I need something, I'll be like, who was that cigar company that we had? Like, I literally look at my nominee list. And then try to dip my dollars back into them.
And it's exposure for those companies, like you just pointed out. Whether they're winners or not, they're still getting the exposure just by simply being a nominee.
And I've received lots of comments from people like that say we were on the brinks of closure. And then all of a sudden we get all this attention on social media about my business. And so, couldn't be more proud.
You know, and I think it's extremely important because when we look around and we see other lists, you know, we just had a real big deal here this week. We'll date the interview a little bit when we talk about the Michelin list that came out this week, and you know how the Visitors Bureau in Dallas paid some $900,000 for the city of Dallas to be, or Texas rather, to be recognized, to be a part of that list, for businesses to be on that list. You know, again, lists are significant. They play a part of the ecosystem. So when we talk about what you guys are doing to help highlight, you know, Black businesses, it's important. And I think it's important that once we see those businesses highlighted on the list, that we do our part to go out and support them.
That's the whole point. I just
So,
want to keep doing that.
Thank you for what you're doing. The event is happening this year on what date?
December 7th at the Aloft Hotel.
All right. And all the information is available where?
At dallasweekly.com. It should be on every social platform. And if you don't see it, you call me personally and let me know.
December 7th.
At the Aloft Hotel at 6 p.m.
All right, December 7th, 6 p.m., Aloft Hotel. It's the Best of Black Dallas. You've got nominees in pretty much every category, from restaurants to
public servants. We want you to know the whole gamut. So, services, medical services, day spas, realtors. We run the whole gamut. Whatever you need in life.
So no longer having to go to Facebook doing that whole, ISO, in search of. No longer having to go to Facebook to do that. Go to DallasWeekly.com and just go look for the best of. And you've got in search of right there. And they're Black. So there you go. Right here. You got it right here. So. All right, let's go. As we continue this, what are you most excited about that you're working on right now? What are you most excited about?
Honestly, kind of to what I was speaking to before, I am very hyper aware of like the climate that's going on right now. And I want always for Dallas Weekly to be a trusted place, but also a safe space. And so right now I am actually ferociously creating some interview segments to talk about some of the things that we know will be affected. We already do coverage on education, but now we're about to kind of crank it up a little bit, you know, to really let people know what to expect as a parent, what to expect as an educator, you know, because it's going to hit all types of facets. So I'm just taking a really hard look. You're going to see a huge crank up in our political coverage, because what people need to understand, unfortunately, is that politics does affect your life. Every single day. And so I think that you're going to see Dallas Weekly really put a hyper focus on that and how it affects our daily lives.
So when you talk about interview segments, will these be taped segments that will be featured on your websites, the YouTube channels?
Yes.
How How will folks consume these?
I'm proud to say that we are always trying to elevate. We actually kind of talk about not calling ourselves even a newspaper anymore, and we call ourselves a media outlet.
Okay.
So yes, everything will be videotaped. We are actually relaunching DW Radio. Worries. But it's really just another way for people to it's just going to be an extraction of the video. If you don't want to go to YouTube, you can go to DW Radio and hear, the actual interview segment. I want all of my content to have 5 components to it, so there is no excuse not to see DW work or news.
Podcast, possibly?
Yes.
Even where I consume my podcast, I could possibly get Dallas Weekly?
Absolutely.
All right.
Please believe it.
I love it.
Yes.
I love it. Okay, so let's talk about, for those young people, it sounds like you maybe even be creating an opportunity for young people. The thing that I was going to ask you is, what's your advice to young people who are maybe aspiring to go into media? I mean, sometimes they look around, they turn on the television, they see maybe 1 or 2 young people that look like them, but then they turn to the other channel and there's no one that looks like them. So they're questioning whether or not they should even go and pursue a degree in journalism or what have you.
I would say number 1 is definitely do your research as you would do anything else, because journalism is still very vast and there's all types of journalism, right? And so sometimes I have people who, kind of would more so want to do more in-depth things that cause you to ask tough questions. That's a different type of training than it would be for you to get in front of a camera and, do something else. It's all news, you know what I mean? But it's also like be very vigilant on like what your mission is in this journalism world, because that also will help you determine where your place is. I do have people that, great writers that come across my desk, and they want to work for DW, but I'm like, you're just not a good fit because you don't fit these pillars, that we have been abided by for 70 years. Wow. So that's what I would advise to young people. But I'm excited to say that we are also very active in knowing that, there is no future without touching into our younger, youth. And so I am going to re-engage an internship program through the James A. Washington Foundation that we just did in my father-in-law's name. And we just want that to be, again, a resource. Being around for 70 years means that we've been blessed to know a lot of people in the game. So even people like yourself, we want to be able to have producers, photographers, broadcast journalists, investigative journalists, every type of person that would touch a newsroom.
Yes.
We need them in that program so they can show that this world, again, is vast.
Yeah. So talk about where do you see the future of Black media?
I'm very hopeful. Yeah. The future, I like to say that you can create the future by leadership. And so I hope by what Dallas Weekly does and the collaborations that we do, we can kind of lay out a blueprint for success. The one thing I would really want to teach anybody who wants to get into this media world is ownership is key, and ownership of your voice. Because once you start doing things that aren't authentic, it's almost game over for you. You might as well start over and do something else.
That's true.
I'm just being honest. And so that would be my one thing as far as Black media. It's so vast and it's so rich, and let's just keep it a buck. Like, everybody looks at us, and there are vultures out there. And so that's why I'm really big on us knowing how to protect our content. Yeah. And then once we do that, the monetization game, it's going to be over. But we just got to have that ownership part, first.
I love it. So what's been your personal mission? I mean, what drives you? You talked about knowing that you needed to be the CEO and understanding fully what that is. What has been your personal mission, and what drives you each day in this role?
Oh my gosh. I'd like to say it's just, I don't want to sound redundant, but just knowing that the work I do does help somebody out there. Because I hear from it. It's one thing just to throw something into the wind, but I really do get feedback from people either via text, or I see something on social, or I run into somebody on the streets. And it doesn't happen every day, but when it happens, I hang on to those moments. Because also, we live in a hyper digital world, and I see that people are looking at my stuff. So that also helps me too. It'd be one thing if my stuff was just laying dead, but the things that we do, they have impact, and I'm just really proud about it. So, I'm also a former athlete, and so I have a really competitive winning spirit. I'm a huge sport. I was at the Cowgirls game, excuse me, no disrespect. I'm an Eagles fan, come on. Are you going to cancel this interview? Don't, please.
Did you really just sit in our office and say the Cowboys and then switch to the Cowgirls?
Listen, I just want to be
and then say no disrespect.
I have a winning spirit.
It's all out disrespect. Oh my! And we were having such a great conversation.
Hey, the disrespect is coming from that coaching staff. So.
No, the disrespect. That was all out disrespect.
All right, let's rewind.
I forgot the point you were making. Jeez. Okay, so to the young people watching this interview, if you're ever having a conversation with someone, please don't just outright disrespect the team that they're going for. Please learn what team they're rooting for before you outright disrespect their team.
That is a good journalist.
Okay, so to the point you were making, whatever it was at this point, I don't know which point you were making.
Is that I like to win and I like to be successful. So that's what drives me every day.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. All right. So if you could share one principle for success, other than that, what would it be? As we wrap this up.
I am lost.
Jeez. We were having such a great conversation.
Because I can't think of anything but that game. Oh my gosh. So sorry.
I'm not that huge of a fan, but you did lose me. Okay, but no, seriously.
Okay, on a serious note, a principle that I would take away, especially as a Black woman, I do have to throw that out there because I'm still feeling pretty emotional about last week.
Yeah.
Is that it's actually something that I told one of my staff members, so I hope she knows who she is. I would say think and stand on your ground. Yeah. Those are the two things. And I know those are like two very simple things, but I do think that sometimes even myself, I get lost into my emotion, so I literally have to stop myself, breathe for a second and think. I still feel my feelings, but to my point, when we first started talking, even before the interview, right? Yeah. It's like I was raised with the notion of you are allowed to feel your feelings, but just know how to feel your feelings. Yeah. And so that would be my one thing. It's like I feel like we are just meant to look like superheroes all the time, and everything like that. But it's just like we are great and we are amazing as Black women. But think, let's stand our ground, and then have a mission. So that would be my advice.
Yeah. Jess Washington, thank you so much for standing your ground. Thank you for doing all that you have done to keep the Dallas Weekly going.
Thank you.
It's a voice that's needed here in our community.
I'm so grateful for this opportunity.
We look forward to having you back to share more of all the great things that are going on over there.
I'll be ready.
All right. Thank you so much for watching. And again, go Cowboys.